One of the biggest issues I've found when I've been teaching students how to use a gun for the first time is managing to lock back the slide. So I want to show you some tips that I've shown to my students that seem to have a measure of success. So let's go. So safety first, gun is clear, slide's locked back, no magazine in the mag well, no round in the chamber. So one of the first things I like to point out is that I see a lot of students, when they are trying to lock back their slide, they want to have the gun out here because maybe they're afraid of it or they want to be as far away from it as possible because they're nervous. But think about it like this. If you were trying to pick up something that has a lot of weight, like a heavy box, you wouldn't pick it up with your arms out like that because you're just using arm strength. Rather, you probably lean over so you don't get your back into it and you pick it up close to you. Why do we do that? Because all of our strength is in our workspace. Out here was just using our arms. And this is also not a good position to have the gun in when you're doing any type of work on your gun because it's harder to reach the things you need to reach, to manipulate what you need to manipulate. And also, if you're in a defensive posture, if you got your gun out here and the guy that you're trying to defend against gets to jump on you or gets up on top of you within that second and a half, you just presented him your gun and you're there nervous and he's gonna knock your gun away or grab the gun from you. So we keep everything in our workspace. Same thing when we're trying to lock back the slide. So once we've got the gun within our workspace, and I always consider that maybe within no more than a foot from your chest, you want to be able to engage the slide stop. I call it the slide stop. Some people call it the slide lock. Some people call it the slide release. I do not call it that because I do not believe that the function of this is to release your slide by pressing down on it. It's to lock the slide to the back, slide lock, or stop the slide from going forward, slide stop. If you're in competition and you use this for speed, fine. But in a defensive situation, not a good idea to think you're going to have the dexterity to be able to press this small thing, this small button down and get your gun in battery. So we're going to push up on the slide stop. Then we're going to place our left hand on the rear of the slide. Now here's one of the critical things. A lot of students want to take their hand and just plop the palm down on it and then try to get a grip on it, but you're not going to get any purchase because you're not using the dexterous parts of your hand. What you want to do is get the meat of your palm and then wrap around so the meat of your palm is on the left side of the gun, assuming you're a right-handed shooter, and then your fingertips want to engage the other side of the slide. So you've got, I'm going to point in that direction just for a second. So you've got that thing happening there, not this, but this. My fingertips are on the serrations on the rear of my gun. They're there for a reason. And the meat of my palm is on the serrations on this side. So now I've got that hollow right there. I've got strength here and I've got strength here. Now what I want to do is while I'm pressing up on the slide stop, I'm going to push forward with my right hand and pull back with my left hand. And then I'm going to do it gently. I know the first time a lot of people want to struggle with it because they've never done it before. It feels like they need to put a lot of strength into it. Okay, I get it. All the one reason you want to keep this close to you and not out here because you have no strength. But it doesn't take a lot. Once you get to the rear, no need to fight with it. Just try to do it as slow as you can and feel the slide going back on the frame until you feel that slight click or that push that indicates that the slide stop engage the notch of the slide. So I'm going to try to do it from behind the camera. Hopefully the camera maintains focus for me. But again, push up using your thumbnail or the meat of your thumb or your knuckle if you have a smaller gun. Push up on the slide stop. A lot of students, when I tell them that, they'll push up and then they'll release. I tell them you have to keep it pushed up. And the other issue that I have is when I have them doing this, this finger is going all over the place because they don't have the strength yet to do this. Well, so then what I would tell them to do at that point is if you can't manage to keep your finger locked to the slider, indexed on the frame, at least, it's not the best thing to do, but at least put the index finger down here so that it is away from the trigger guard. Don't put it out here like I've seen some students do, because it's inevitable it's gonna be flying around again. Again, push up on the slide stop. Place your hand on the rear with the meat on the slide and the fingertips on the slide, and push forward with your right hand. Pull back with your left hand, and you've locked back your slide. Now you may argue that, well, why can't I pull the slide back and then push up on the slide stop? Well, if you feel comfortable doing that, that's fine. I just believe that if you're struggling with your gun to begin with, trying to find that precise moment where you're going to push the slide stop up is going to be pretty much impossible. So I'm recommending keep the slide stop pushed up all the time while you're engaging the slide itself to the rear, so you don't have to worry about when do I push up the slide stop. Now, if you're able to practice this or work your firearm locking back the slide with the gun pointed in the same orientation as your chest or your body, and that's both downrange, that's ideal, because that's the position you want to be so that you can keep your eye on the threat or on the target. So you're locking back the slide, hand comes onto the rear of the slide, your left hand, or if you're a right-handed shooter, I'm pushing up on the slide stop and I've locked back the slide from this orientation. Now, even if you come back into your workspace, I've seen some students, and majority of them are women, I'm just going to be transparent here, but some men as well, where they cannot work this even from this position. So how do we get a little bit more strength behind this? Well, one tried and true method is to keep the gun oriented downrange, keep it downrange, and orient your body parallel to the gun. So now you got even more strength pushing back this way and pushing forward. So now again, you want to push up on the slide stop, place the left hand or right hand over the rear of the slide so that you feel the serrations on the meat of your palm and on your fingertips. Push forward and pull back. It's like pulling off a band-aid, just one swift move. I would recommend you try this. Pull back and push forward as hard as you can, as fast as you can, until you feel resistance. Then stop and slowly let the slide go forward. Again, pull back as fast as you can until you can't pull back anymore. Stop struggling with it at that point. Just release the slide slowly and let it go forward slowly, and chances are you'll be successful at locking back the slide. So I'm sorry if I'm disorienting you by first being screen right then screen left, but I am wanting to show you different sides of the gun, and I'm always going to keep the gun pointed down range. For a brief second, I pointed it that way because I had no other choice, but I want to keep the gun pointed down range. So what I was going to say was, if you are new to manipulating your firearm, new to guns, and you're struggling with this, what I would say to you is you want to consider buying a gun that has a more pronounced slide stop, perhaps. This gun here, this is a 226 6-hour Legion. If you're new to gun ownership, you're probably not going to buy this gun, but my point is that slide stop is pretty pronounced. It shouldn't be that difficult. It's got serrations on it, so you can use the flesh of your thumb to push up, or it's bows out, so you can use your fingernail to push up. Now, this is my SIG 229 Legion. This is the gun that I carry 99% of the time. The slide stop here is a hell of a lot more difficult to raise up because it's nestled into a little wedge here. So the bottom of the slide stop is flush with the frame of the gun at this point. So it's not going to be as easy to push the slide stop up. It just takes training and getting used to using this gun. So you may want to consider that when you go to buy a gun. Now, there is one cheap method to locking back the slide easily. I don't know, I can't think of a scenario where this may come into play. I tried to think of one, but the only one I can think of off the top of my head is, let's say I have a laser cartridge, one of those laser lights or ELMS laser cartridges inside of my chamber, which I had to put in there manually, and I got to slide forward on it, and my magazine is not in there because I don't need a magazine when I'm using laser training and I'm dry firing with the laser inside, and I want to lock the slide back to be able to punch the laser cartridge out. That's the only situation I can think of where I would do this. But if you have an empty magazine, these lips right here, these sharp lips right here, hopefully that's in focus for you, they will engage the slide stop from the inside if there's no rounds in the magazine. So you can place the magazine into the mag well, an empty magazine, then pull back the slide, and it will lock back a lot easier because the empty magazine, those lips are engaging, again, that slide stop from the inside. One other thing I want to point out, which is kind of tertiary to locking back the slide. Since we're talking about the slide, I always want to make this point, and that is when we're loading our magazine into the mag well, and these are dummy rounds, we want to rack the slide. It's not going to stop because I've got a magazine in here that has rounds in it. They are dummy rounds, but let's pretend they're live rounds. So I want to rack one into the chamber. I'm going to have to push forward with my right hand and pull back with my left hand. Now, one thing I don't want to do is do this. Don't want to ride the slide forward. The reason is that think about a slingshot. You've got the stick with the Y on it, and it's got a rubber band in between the Y, the goalpost, if you will, of the slingshot. Well, if I put the rock behind that rubber band and I pull back, and I hold on to the rock, and then let it go when it gets back up to the slingshot, where's it going to go? It's going to drop right in front of me, because all this kinetic energy that I built up, I robbed it of that. I stole it away by holding on to it when I let the rock go forward. Same thing with a gun. So if I pull that rock back and I release it, all the kinetic energy that I built up coming back is going to make it go forward. For every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Same thing with the slide. I do not want to do this and then ride it forward, because it may not seat the round in the chamber properly. I stole all that kinetic energy that it needs to go forward. I want to do this. I want to keep moving back. My hand should never go forward when I'm gripping the slide. I mean, there are maybe some cases where it will go forward, maybe when you're doing a slight press check and you're going to push it forward into a battery. But for the most part, my grip, my left hand, should never go forward when I am manipulating this slide. It always goes back and releases. Now, there are handguns that are manufactured to specifically make it easy to lock the slide back. I'm thinking of the Smith & Wesson EZ series. I've had a lot of people that have had success in locking that slide back without too much trouble. I did a video about that gun. I'm going to put the link up in the corner here, but that gun has a lot of other issues that you might want to consider before you just jump and buy that gun, simply because it's easy to lock back the slide, but it is an option. So that's all I've got for today. Leave your comments below, and hey, let's get out there, train, let's get informed, let's get trained, let's learn how to defend ourselves. All right, guys, I will see you soon. Take care.